Sorry, it's hard not to get emotional. This is the manor. That's where Sophia died. We spent the whole day getting ready together. Got my ears pierced. We made dinner together. Yeah, it's weird to think back to that day and know what was going to happen, I guess.
We begin tonight with the tragic death of a young woman in Dunedin after a student party gone wrong.
My name's Prentice and I studied at Dunedin for 4 years, and in my second year of university my best friend Sophia Crestani died at a flat party. I love you. It's really unsafe in Dunedin at the moment because all of the bars over the last 10 years have been shut down in an effort to stamp out the party culture.
Many used to go to Starter's Bar, a student-owned venue, but it closed last year due to health and safety concerns.
All that's done is pushed way too many people into flat parties, and that's what happened the night Sophia died. And I'm really, really determined to make sure that doesn't happen again. There were quite a few nights before what happened at the manor where, the next morning we'd all be talking about, oh my God, it was so hard to get in and out of the door. And if you can imagine, hundreds of people trying to get into that door, and the staircase is really thin. I think that was just one of the warning signs, I guess. It was the last manor party before it was being sold. There was definitely a buzz, and it was so crowded. All of a sudden it was just a body pile up. It was just I was being completely crushed. I don't really remember, being taken out, but, next thing was I was just sitting on the curb, and all I could think about was, has Sophia got out? I think the hardest part is knowing how I felt. Sorry, I really want to be able to say this. Wondering what she was thinking. And how scared she must have been. I don't want this to come across as though I want party culture to stop and flat parties to stop, because that's flat parties are so much fun. I'm just saying that there should be options, but right now the only option is flats. I feel there was an intentional effort to diminish party culture, and that's made it way worse, and there's been no accountability from anyone. Shutting down all the bars, things it's just exacerbated the unsafety of party culture. What about flat parties was it that you enjoyed in Dunedin?
Well, what's not to enjoy? Heaps of people your age, everyone's obviously drinking, so that makes people a bit more fun.
Did you ever feel there were too many people, it was ever overcrowded at times?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. There's definitely been times where it's kind of seemed pretty unsafe, and you kind of have that feeling oh, this could go kind of wrong.
Have you been to many flat parties or anything like that?
I'm not the biggest fan of them, but my friends do, yeah.
Can I ask why?
I just think, I find that I get lost a lot, and it freaks me out. A lot of people get too drunk, I feel, and it's just scary to be around,
Have you guys ever heard about the old student venues from 10 years ago, Gardy's and the Cook and things like that?
No.
If there were student venues and bars other than town, all the way in the Ockley, would you guys go to them?
Definitely. Yeah.
I heard stories from people's parents of 3-story bars that, could have so many students in them. And after what happened at the manor, one of the number one questions I got asked, mainly by adults, was, oh, well, where was your uni bar? All we had was these shitty old flats.
Nice to see you.
From my experience at university, this was the Marshall Study Centre where I studied mainly in second year. What was it to you?
Well, this was the front entrance of the Guardies. It was one of the big four, so there was 4 main student bars. It was a good spot. So was the Cook, so was the Bowler, so was the Ori.
I've heard so much of, the golden age of student venues in Dunedin and Guardies and the Cook, and what was it like?
It could be carnage at night, but it was good carnage. It was, because it was controlled carnage. It was in a supervised, controlled environment. So I'm in there, I've got 500 people there and a young staff. I knew when things were starting to lose their shape a bit, and so you would do something about it. That's what we did. We were publicans.
And I think it's the same as it is now. It's just that back then there was you guys to kind of oversee everything. And
I mean, these are young people. They don't want to sort of sit around politely and chat, and they want to get up and have a wiggle and bounce around and just enjoy themselves, for God's sake. Okay, so this is the Guardies limo, our courtesy vehicle.
So why did the student venues go away?
We're not begrudging the supermarkets, but they took the majority of the sales. So then 80% of that liquor is sold elsewhere. How do we pay our bills? And then the varsity offered good money for this place because they just wanted it. They thought they were closing down a problem. And absolutely nothing changed on Castle Street, nothing changed on Hyde Street.
Do you feel like there was a deliberate effort to minimise party culture and student culture in Dunedin?
Yeah, look, there was, the varsity especially were always keen to have that more campus style environment, like maybe an American campus. They thought it reflected badly on North Dunedin, but then look at some of the states of the flats from these absentee landlords.
I think students are blamed for so much of what goes on in Dunedin and what happens and the state of the streets and the overcrowding of the parties. But if you imagine like a super busy intersection and there's heaps of crashes going on, everyone's still going to drive, so you put up a sign or you put up traffic lights. Like, students are still going to party. Give them a place to party, like put bins on the streets for them to put their drinks in. Like, we're almost set up to fail down here.
This week, Megan Prentice should have been celebrating her friend Sophia Crestani's 22nd birthday. Instead, she's cleaning up Dunedin's Castle Street in her honour. In her memory, the Sophia Charter was launched in 2020, designed to improve student safety.
Sophia's parents came down after they got, the most horrible news, and they were straight away like, right, how are we going to change this? What are we going to do? And so that's how the Sophia Charter got set up. The Sophia Charter is a sort of shared pledge between some key agencies like the uni, fire and emergency, police. It's how can we make Dunedin even more fun but safe? I definitely was frustrated with sort of the lack of student engagement in the beginning of the charter. There was a little bit of backlash when it was launched because it was kind of viewed as this thing that was gonna stop the fun. But I'm now a partner of the charter and we're getting way more students involved and engaged with the charter. Yes, hi, it's nice to probably meet you in person. The uni's major role with students is obviously education, but I think that a lot of people do come down here for the fun and the culture, and there's no other place in New Zealand where there's everyone living all next door to each other. And what role do you think that you play in terms of protecting the students and making sure that there are safe spaces?
We are clearly influential in the city. We're acutely aware of that boundary, and we can cross that to be interfering into young adults' private lives. But then we recognise the responsibility, the fact they're here because of the university, and that's part of the environment. So we've invested a lot in trying to support students in decision making and encouraging safe parties and safe housing, etc. So,
could you expand a little bit more on that in terms of what actions that the uni has taken to address safe partying and safe flat parties and that kind of thing?
We have invested a lot in our 24/7 campus watch in our proctor's office.
How do you see student venues as a way to go forward in the future? Like, what role do you think that would play in making flat parties safer?
Socialisation is going to happen, that's important. And having a variety of options that are safe is obviously what we want to support.
For me, one of the quick wins is, opening up a student venue, and that's going to release so much of the pressure of flat parties being the only place for students to go. I don't see myself tapping out of this fight at all because Sophia died and she was my best friend, and no one else should ever have to lose their best friend, and no other 19-year-old person should have to die having fun in Dunedin.